The prison gates closed behind Leo with a loud echo that rattled through the yard. The heavy metal slammed shut, and for a moment the sounds of clanging metal and shouting inmates faded into a tense silence. Leo paused, letting his eyes adjust to the harsh light and the crowded space before him. Prison was a world of its own, a place where fear, power, and reputation ruled. Every face he saw was a story of survival or aggression, and today he had to understand how to move carefully. Leo was calm. His tall frame and steady posture made him seem unshakable. He had faced challenges before, challenges far greater than any prison could throw at him. But he had learned that appearances mattered in a place like this. Some prisoners wore fear openly while others hid it beneath a mask of toughness. Leo walked slowly, hands relaxed at his sides, showing no sign of nervousness. Every step he took was measured, deliberate. The prisoners noticed him immediately. Whispers started as he passed, rippling through the yard like a quiet wave. "Who is that guy?" one inmate asked, nudging another. "Never seen him before," the second replied, eyes narrowing. Curiosity was dangerous in a prison, but it was also inevitable. Everyone wanted to know about a newcomer, especially one who carried himself with such quiet confidence. Near the benches, Marcus sat surrounded by a small group of followers. Marcus was the kind of bully who thrived on intimidation. He was strong, loud, and aggressive, a man who ruled his corner of the yard with fear. New prisoners were his favorite targets, and today, Marcus had spotted a potential victim. His eyes locked on Leo and a grin spread across his face. "Fresh meat," he muttered under his breath, his voice carrying just enough to be heard by those nearby. Marcus stood, towering over the other inmates. His movements were deliberate, designed to draw attention and assert dominance. He stepped closer to Leo, who was now walking past the benches, calm and unbothered. The other inmates sensed that something was about to happen, and they began to circle, forming a loose crowd to watch the unfolding scene. "Hey, where do you think you're going?" Marcus shouted, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. He reached out and shoved Leo, a strong, aggressive push meant to test him. Leo stumbled slightly but did not fall. His face remained neutral, his eyes steady on Marcus. There was no fear, no anger, just calm observation. "You don't have to do this," Leo said quietly. His voice was calm, but it carried an invisible weight. Marcus laughed, misreading the calmness as weakness. He had faced scared men before, men who trembled and begged for mercy. He expected the same from Leo. "Talk all you want, newbie," Marcus said, stepping closer. "It won't save you." The circle of inmates tightened, their curiosity growing. Some whispered bets, others simply waited to watch a fight erupt. Marcus raised his fist and lunged forward, aiming directly at Leo's face. Leo moved with a speed that shocked everyone. He did not panic, did not flinch in fear. His body shifted gracefully, almost like water flowing around a rock. Marcus's punch missed by inches. The force carried him slightly off balance, and Leo used the moment to counter. With a swift, precise movement, Leo redirected Marcus's momentum and sent him to the ground. The sound of Marcus hitting the floor was loud and final. The yard went silent. Every eye was on Leo, and the whispers turned into stunned silence. Some prisoners stared in awe, others in fear. No one expected the new inmate to have such control and skill. Leo looked down at Marcus, who lay on the ground, shocked and embarrassed. "Next time, think before you act," Leo said calmly. His words were simple, but they carried authority. He turned and walked away, his steps steady, leaving the circle of inmates speechless. For a moment, no one moved. Then slowly the murmurs returned. "Did you see that?" one inmate asked. "That guy just beat Marcus without even trying," another replied. Marcus struggled to rise, glaring at Leo with a mix of anger and disbelief. His followers helped him up, but their usual confidence was shaken. Marcus had built his reputation on fear, and now that reputation had been challenged in the most unexpected way. Leo moved to the edge of the yard, his eyes scanning the area. He had entered the prison quietly, without fanfare, but his presence now demanded attention. He was careful not to show aggression. He did not seek fights, but he also did not allow anyone to challenge him without consequence. In a place like this, respect was earned through actions, not words. The guards had watched the incident from a distance. They were experienced, having seen countless fights and confrontations, but even they paused for a moment, noting the control and precision Leo displayed. One guard shook his head, muttering to another, "That kid knows how to handle himself." Inside, Marcus was plotting. His anger was not just about the fall. It was about pride. He had never been defeated in front of his followers. He could not let this new inmate walk through the yard with such ease. Marcus knew he would have to strike back, but he also understood that Leo was not ordinary. He would have to plan carefully, and that thought made him uneasy. As the day passed, word of the incident spread quickly through the prison. Inmates talked quietly about the newcomer, about how he had moved and countered with such skill. Some were intimidated, others were curious. Leo had already made an impression, one that would not fade easily. People began to wonder who he really was, why he carried himself with such confidence, and why no one had heard of him before. Leo spent the rest of the day quietly observing. He watched the interactions between prisoners, noting alliances, rivalries, and patterns. He knew that understanding the social landscape of the prison was just as important as physical skill. He did not need to prove himself to everyone, but he needed to ensure he remained safe and respected. By evening, the yard had quieted. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the walls. Leo found a bench near the corner, away from the groups, and sat down. He remained alert, but his calm demeanor never wavered. Other prisoners glanced at him, some nodding in silent acknowledgement, others avoiding his gaze. Leo had already set the tone. He was not to be underestimated. Marcus, meanwhile, brooded in his corner. He could not forget the way he had been bested. His followers tried to cheer him up, but he was too focused on the humiliation. He needed to regain control, to re-establish dominance, but he also knew he had met someone unlike anyone he had faced before. The new inmate was not ordinary, and that fact gnawed at him. As night fell, the prison settled into its routine. The loud voices, the clanging doors, and the restless energy slowed. But Leo's presence lingered in the minds of the inmates. Today had been a test, and he had passed it without conflict or chaos. His calm, controlled approach had made an impact far greater than any fight could have. Unbeknownst to everyone in the prison, Leo carried a secret. He was the deadliest MMA champion in history, undefeated in every match he had fought. He had faced opponents who were stronger, faster, and more experienced, and he had always come out on top. In the prison yard, that experience translated into precision, control, and awareness. The new inmates and the bullies did not know his past, but they were beginning to feel its presence. Leo leaned back on the bench, eyes scanning the yard one last time before night fully settled. He was not here to fight, not unless he had to, but he would not allow anyone to challenge him without consequence. Respect, he knew, was earned not through words but through actions, and today he had begun to earn it. The first day in prison ended with quiet tension. The inmates who had watched the fight talked in whispers. The guards made their rounds, and Marcus plotted silently in his corner. The yard had a new energy, one that suggested a shift was happening. Leo's calm presence had changed the balance, and everyone would feel it in the days to come. The night was long and quiet, but the story of Leo and the first encounter with Marcus had already begun to spread. Prison life was harsh, but it was also predictable in some ways. The newcomers who survived were the ones who understood the rules, observed the patterns, and acted with precision. Leo had done all three. Tomorrow the challenge would continue. Marcus would not forget, and the other prisoners would be watching closely. But Leo was ready, calm, controlled, and skilled. He was prepared to navigate the dangerous world of prison with the same mastery he had shown in the ring. His presence was a quiet storm, one that could not be ignored, and for everyone in the yard the lesson was clear. Leo was not an ordinary inmate. He was a force to be respected, a presence that demanded caution, and a man whose skill and control were unmatched. Today had been the first step, but the real story was just beginning. The next morning, the prison yard was alive with whispers. Leo's calm yet commanding presence from the previous day had become the main topic of conversation. Inmates who had witnessed his effortless control over Marcus moved cautiously around him, their curiosity mixed with unease. Leo walked through the yard with the same steady pace, hands relaxed, eyes scanning every corner, aware of the prison's rhythm. He did not seek confrontation, but he knew the eyes of others followed his every move. Marcus sat with his small group of followers, his pride wounded and his mind restless. He had never been bested so easily, and the memory of hitting the ground made his fists clench involuntarily. Today he planned to reclaim his image. He could not let a newcomer walk through the yard without being challenged again. If he did, his reputation, carefully built over years, would crumble. "Leo," Marcus muttered under his breath, staring at him from across the yard. "You think you can just come here and make me look weak?" His words were sharp, but his calm exterior did not betray the anxiety brewing beneath. Marcus had learned one thing. Leo was not ordinary. Marcus needed a plan, and he needed to act carefully if he wanted to avoid another humiliation. Leo noticed Marcus staring, but he did not react. He had learned long ago that bullies thrived on reaction. By staying calm, he could observe their patterns, understand their motives, and prepare himself without unnecessary conflict. Today would not be a fight. Today would be observation and understanding. The morning routine continued, with inmates moving in clusters, some going to work assignments, others staying in the yard. Leo watched quietly, noting who avoided him and who seemed tempted to provoke. The subtle interactions revealed alliances and rivalries, the invisible web of control and power that governed life behind bars. He had faced complicated challenges before, but this social maze required patience and focus. Marcus finally stood, motioning for his followers to join him. "We need to show everyone who's in charge," he said quietly. His plan was not to attack openly in front of the guards, but to corner Leo when he was alone. Marcus knew that Leo's calmness could mask skill, and he could not afford another surprise. Throughout the morning, Marcus and his group watched Leo closely. They followed him from a distance, observing his movements, waiting for a moment of weakness. But Leo remained composed. He walked through the yard, greeted some inmates politely, and even helped a prisoner carry a heavy bucket of water to another section. His actions, simple as they seemed, earned quiet respect. Some inmates whispered about him, unsure whether to fear or admire him. By midday, the sun was high, casting long shadows across the concrete walls. Marcus decided it was time to act. He found a quiet corner near the laundry section where few guards were present. His followers circled him. Their excitement mingled with nervous anticipation. Marcus was the leader here, and they trusted his plans. When Leo approached the laundry area, Marcus stepped forward. "Hey, newbie," he called, his voice louder than necessary. Leo looked up, calm and steady, and nodded slightly in acknowledgement. Marcus's followers watched eagerly. They expected a fight, a show of force to assert dominance, but Leo did not move toward conflict. "Do you want trouble, Marcus?" Leo asked quietly. His voice was calm, yet there was an invisible weight behind it. Marcus stiffened. Most people hearing Leo's tone would feel uneasy, sensing authority and simplicity, but Marcus ignored it, choosing instead to force the confrontation. "I don't want trouble," Marcus said quickly, though his words were false. "I just want you to understand how things work here." He stepped closer, fists clenched. His followers tensed, ready for action, while a few inmates paused nearby, sensing the tension rising. Leo studied Marcus carefully. Every movement, every glance told a story. He did not attack immediately because he understood the power of patience. He waited, letting Marcus exhaust his energy and reveal his patterns. Then, with the precision of a trained fighter, Leo moved. Marcus lunged first, aiming to grab Leo and intimidate him. Leo sidestepped smoothly, redirecting Marcus's momentum. Marcus stumbled, barely keeping his balance, and Leo countered with a swift, controlled push that sent Marcus onto a stack of laundry crates. The sound of crates breaking echoed through the yard, and a hush fell over the nearby inmates. "Enough," Leo said calmly. He did not raise his voice, did not show aggression beyond the simple assertion of control. Marcus groaned as he struggled to rise, embarrassed and frustrated. His followers helped him up, their expressions a mix of concern and awe. The lesson was clear. Leo's skill was not loud or chaotic, but precise and unstoppable. Word spread quickly. Inmates nearby whispered to one another, exchanging glances filled with newfound respect for Leo. Marcus's reputation, built over years of fear and intimidation, had been challenged in the most unexpected way. His followers were silent, unsure how to react. The balance of power in the yard had shifted, and even Marcus realized it. As the day went on, Leo continued his routine. He helped others when needed, moved calmly through the yard, and observed quietly. His presence had a stabilizing effect. Prisoners who had previously caused trouble paused to consider their actions, unsure whether provoking Leo was wise. Even Marcus found himself second-guessing his plans. By evening, tension remained in the air. Marcus retreated to a corner, his mind racing. He could not ignore what had happened. Leo was not ordinary. He was something more. Marcus had faced tough opponents before, but none had moved with the control and precision that Leo had shown. That thought unsettled him. Meanwhile, Leo sat quietly on a bench near the edge of the yard. He observed the other inmates, noting interactions, alliances, and rivalries. He understood that survival in this environment required more than strength. It required intelligence, patience, and awareness. He did not need to dominate through fear. He only needed to demonstrate capability when necessary. The guards made their rounds, watching quietly. They had noticed the incidents with Marcus but did not intervene. They understood that Leo's actions were controlled, and he did not pose a danger to the general order. His calm demeanor and precision had a subtle effect, commanding respect without creating chaos. Night fell slowly, and the prison quieted. Inmates returned to their cells. Conversations grew softer, and the clanging of gates became intermittent. Leo remained vigilant, aware of every movement around him. Even in the quiet, he understood that danger could arise at any moment, and preparedness was essential. Marcus, however, could not rest. He paced his corner, replaying every detail of the encounters with Leo. His pride demanded that he find a way to regain control, but he also knew that rushing in would only lead to further embarrassment. For the first time, Marcus faced uncertainty, and it was a new feeling for him. Meanwhile, some inmates approached Leo quietly, curious about his calm nature and skill. They asked questions cautiously, seeking advice or simply conversation. Leo spoke gently, sharing words of caution and observation. His calm, composed attitude drew people toward him, not with fear but with respect. In a place ruled by aggression, Leo's quiet confidence was a rare and powerful trait. By the end of the second day, the prison had settled into an unusual rhythm. Marcus had learned that his old tactics would not work with Leo. The other inmates had begun to notice that Leo's presence changed the yard's energy. There was a sense of order, an invisible authority that Leo carried simply through calmness, awareness, and skill. Leo leaned back on his bench, watching the sun set over the high walls. His first 2 days had been tests, and he had passed both without unnecessary conflict. He understood the rules, the power dynamics, and the delicate balance of respect and caution. He had not sought to dominate, but he had earned acknowledgement, and for Marcus, the lesson was only beginning. The bully who had relied on fear and aggression now faced someone who could see through his actions, anticipate them, and respond with control. Marcus's challenge had shifted from physical dominance to understanding that skill and calmness could outweigh raw aggression. The first 2 days had set the stage. The yard had already changed subtly. Inmates whispered, observed, and adapted. Leo had not raised his voice, had not sought fights, but his presence alone had created a shift. The tension was quiet but powerful, and everyone felt it. Tomorrow, the real test would begin. Marcus would try again, perhaps with more strategy, and the other inmates would watch closely. But Leo was prepared. His skill, patience, and awareness made him ready for whatever challenge came next. In a place where strength and fear ruled, Leo's calm presence was a new force. And in that quiet tension, everyone knew that Leo was not just another inmate. He was someone to be watched, someone to be respected, and someone whose skill and control were unmatched. The story of Leo and Marcus was far from over, but the first chapter had already been written, leaving a lasting impression on the prison yard and everyone in it. The third day in prison began like any other, but the atmosphere in the yard felt different. Inmates whispered as they passed each other, glancing at Leo with a mixture of curiosity and caution. News of his skill with Marcus had spread quickly. Even those who had not seen the fights knew that the new inmate was not ordinary. People moved more carefully around him, sensing the quiet power he carried. Leo walked through the yard, observing the prisoners. He did not speak much, but his calm eyes took in every detail. He noticed the alliances forming, the subtle gestures that showed loyalty, the way some inmates avoided eye contact while others tested boundaries. Prison life was a game of observation and patience, and Leo had already mastered that part. Marcus sat in his corner, restless and angry. He could not shake the embarrassment of the previous days. His followers tried to cheer him up, but Marcus only glared at the yard, plotting. He had underestimated Leo, and now he knew he had to be smarter. He would not act recklessly, or he would face another defeat. "I need a plan," Marcus muttered to his closest followers. "We cannot let him walk around like he owns this place. We need to get him alone, away from the crowd, and make him understand who's in charge." His voice was low, filled with frustration and determination. The plan needed precision, and Marcus was learning that brute force alone would not work. Leo moved toward the basketball court, a place where inmates often gathered for casual games. He noticed Marcus watching from a distance, his eyes sharp and calculating. Leo did not react outwardly, but he remained alert. Marcus was dangerous, not just because of his strength, but because of his willingness to plan and manipulate situations. A few inmates approached Leo cautiously, curious about him. One named Sam stepped forward, asking if Leo wanted to join a game of basketball. Leo nodded, his calm demeanor reassuring the others. They began to play, and the rhythm of the game brought a temporary distraction from the tension in the yard. Marcus observed carefully, noting every movement. He waited for the right moment when Leo would be isolated. He did not want another public confrontation where he could be embarrassed. He needed a calculated approach, one that would force Leo to acknowledge him without giving the other inmates a chance to interfere. As the game continued, Leo moved with grace and focus. His athleticism was clear, and even those familiar with his calm demeanor could not help but notice his skill and coordination. He was not just strong, he was precise and aware, moving with a control that made him seem untouchable. Marcus finally saw his opportunity. A small group of inmates had moved away from the main yard, leaving a quieter area near the basketball court. He signaled to his followers, and they slowly approached, trying to isolate Leo. Marcus's plan was simple: corner him, intimidate him, and assert dominance. But he also knew he had to be careful. Leo's calmness was intimidating, and any mistake could cost him again. "Hey, Leo," Marcus called, louder than necessary. Leo looked toward him, still calm, but his eyes sharp and aware. Marcus stepped closer, fists clenched, and his followers flanked him. The yard's chatter grew quieter as other inmates noticed the tension rising. "What is it, Marcus?" Leo asked quietly. His voice was calm, unshaken, but there was an invisible weight behind it. Marcus stepped closer, trying to appear larger and more threatening. "You think you can just come here and act like you are better than everyone?" Marcus shouted, though his tone carried frustration more than confidence. "You need to learn how things work here." Leo remained still, his eyes on Marcus. He understood the bully's need to feel powerful, but he also knew that a measured response was more effective than reacting with anger. Marcus lunged forward, aiming to grab Leo and push him against the wall. Leo moved smoothly, sidestepping and redirecting Marcus's momentum. The bully stumbled, momentarily off balance, and Leo used the chance to control the situation without using unnecessary force. "You need to stop," Leo said calmly. "I do not want conflict, but I will defend myself if necessary." His words were simple, yet they carried authority. Marcus's followers exchanged nervous glances, realizing that Leo's control was real. The quiet strength of his presence was enough to unsettle even the most aggressive inmates. Marcus recovered quickly, but this time he hesitated. He could not rely on brute strength alone. Leo's calmness and awareness made it clear that any direct attack would fail. Marcus took a deep breath, his mind racing to find another approach. "You're clever," Marcus said quietly, more to himself than to Leo. "I need to think differently." He motioned for his followers to step back, and they moved reluctantly. Marcus realized that earning respect from Leo required more than intimidation. He would need strategy, patience, and perhaps even humility. Leo continued to observe. He noticed the subtle shifts in Marcus's behavior, the way he calculated each move and the caution in his eyes. It was rare for someone to combine strength with intelligence in such a way, even if Marcus had acted poorly before. Leo knew that respect could be earned, but only through action and understanding. As the day progressed, the other inmates began to notice the new dynamic. Leo's calm authority contrasted sharply with Marcus's usual aggression. Some inmates whispered to each other, trying to predict what would happen next. Others watched, silently, learning that physical dominance was not the only way to control a situation. During a break, Leo sat on a bench near the wall, quietly drinking water. He observed Marcus pacing across the yard, still plodding but now more measured in his movements. Leo understood that the bully was learning, adapting, and testing boundaries. In prison, survival was not just about strength. It was about reading people, predicting actions, and responding effectively. Marcus approached him cautiously, this time without aggression. "Leo, listen," he said quietly. "I want to make sure you understand how things work here. I do not want trouble, but I need to be respected." His tone was different now, less hostile, more calculated. Leo nodded slowly. "Respect is earned," he replied simply. "It is not taken by force. Everyone here has the right to safety and fairness. You do not need to prove yourself by hurting others." His words were clear, and the calm authority in his voice made an impact. Marcus looked surprised. Few had ever spoken to him in that way, let alone made him pause and reflect. The day continued, with tension and curiosity balanced in equal measure. Leo helped a few inmates carry supplies to the cells and spoke to others quietly, offering advice or assistance. His calm, capable demeanor drew attention, not through fear, but through respect. Marcus watched closely, realizing that intimidation was not the only way to gain influence in the prison yard. By evening, the yard had settled into a tense but controlled rhythm. Marcus had not attacked again, but he was learning the importance of patience and strategy. Leo had not sought to dominate, yet he had earned acknowledgement through calmness, awareness, and skill. In the quiet moments of the day, Leo reflected on the challenges ahead. He understood that prison life required more than strength. Social dynamics, alliances, and careful observation were just as important. He had already earned the respect of some inmates and the cautious attention of others. The foundation for future interactions was set, but challenges were certain to arise. Marcus, meanwhile, retreated to his corner once again. He could not forget the events of the day. Leo was clever, controlled, and skilled. Marcus realized that regaining his reputation would require more than force. It required strategy and intelligence. For the first time, he felt uncertain, but that uncertainty would drive him to improve and adapt. The night fell, and the prison quieted. Guards made their rounds, checking on inmates, but Leo remained alert, observing even in the darkness. The calmness of the yard had changed slightly, influenced by the presence of a man who combined skill with patience. Inmates whispered about the day's events, the subtle shift in power dynamics, and the quiet authority that Leo had displayed. Tomorrow promised more challenges. Marcus would continue to test boundaries, and other inmates would watch closely. But Leo was ready. His calm presence, awareness, and skill made him prepared for whatever situation arose. The balance of the yard had shifted, and everyone sensed it. The story of Leo and Marcus was far from over. The first 2 days had established a foundation of respect, tension, and curiosity. Day 3 had shown that strength alone did not define control. Leo's calm authority had begun to influence the yard, and the prison had already started to feel different. Everyone understood one thing clearly. Leo was not ordinary. He was capable, observant, and skilled. The quiet power he carried demanded attention and respect. Marcus, though proud and stubborn, had begun to understand that controlling the yard would require more than aggression. As the lights dimmed and the night settled, the prison yard remained full of tension, anticipation, and quiet curiosity. Leo had made his presence known without chaos or anger. He had shown that patience, skill, and awareness could command respect more than force. And for Marcus, the lesson continued. He had encountered a force unlike any he had faced, one that challenged his pride and demanded careful thought. The rivalry was not yet over, and the story of the prison yard had only grown more complex and intriguing. The 4th day in prison began with the usual noise of gates, shouts, and clanging metal, but the energy in the yard felt heavier. Everyone seemed to be waiting, watching, and guessing what might happen next. Leo moved through the yard quietly, his calm demeanor drawing attention without any effort. His eyes scanned the area, observing everyone's behavior, noting who avoided him and who lingered to watch. Marcus sat on a bench with a few followers, his expression tense. Yesterday had taught him that brute force alone would not work with Leo. He had to be strategic, careful, and patient. For the first time, Marcus realized that someone in this yard could outsmart him, and that thought was both frustrating and unnerving. "We need to be smart today," Marcus whispered to his followers. "He isn't just strong. He watches everything. We have to trap him where he can't move freely." His followers nodded, understanding the seriousness of the plan. Marcus had been used to intimidating through fear, but Leo had already proven that intimidation would not work. Leo noticed Marcus watching him, but he did not react. He had learned long ago that bullies thrive on attention and reaction. By remaining calm, he could see Marcus's intentions without giving him the satisfaction of fear or anger. Leo's awareness was like a shield, and he relied on observation more than speed or power, knowing that both would matter if conflict arose. Around midday, Marcus finally decided to act. He had identified a quiet part of the yard near the maintenance shed where the crowd would not easily see them. He motioned for his followers to stay close but out of view. His plan was to corner Leo, intimidate him, and force acknowledgement of his authority. "Leo," Marcus called, louder than necessary, his voice echoing slightly. Leo turned, still calm, and approached slowly. Marcus blocked his path, standing tall. "You need to understand how things work here. You can't just walk around and ignore me. I am in charge of this yard." Leo looked at Marcus quietly, studying his movements. "You do not need to prove anything with force. Respect comes from fairness and awareness, not fear," he said calmly. His voice carried authority, and even the few inmates nearby stopped to listen. Marcus's brow furrowed, realizing that words alone would not bend Leo to his will. Marcus lunged suddenly, attempting to grab Leo by the arm. Leo moved smoothly to the side, redirecting Marcus's momentum. Marcus stumbled slightly, regaining balance quickly, but his followers watched nervously. Leo's movements were precise, controlled, and deliberate. He did not attack aggressively but used Marcus's own motion against him, a skill Marcus had never anticipated. "You're lucky I'm not trying to hurt you," Leo said quietly, his eyes calm yet alert. "This could be over in seconds if I wanted it to be." The words were simple, but they carried power. Marcus froze for a moment, the weight of Leo's calmness and confidence pressing down on him. Marcus recovered and tried a different tactic. Instead of rushing, he spoke carefully. "You think you are better than me because you moved fast yesterday. You think watching and dodging makes you strong. You do not belong here, and I will prove it." His voice was measured but tense. He was learning that strategy mattered more than aggression when dealing with someone like Leo. Leo watched him, assessing the subtle changes in posture and intent. Strength without control is not power. Power is knowing how and when to act, and awareness is stronger than force. "You can challenge me if you wish, but only wisely." His calm, confident tone made Marcus hesitate. Most people reacted with anger or fear, but Leo's composed words made him pause and think. Marcus glanced around, noticing the few inmates who had gathered quietly to watch. He realized that any reckless action could make him look foolish again. Leo's influence was growing without a single shout, and that made Marcus's challenge more complex. He needed a plan that would test Leo without exposing himself to another embarrassment. For the next few hours, the tension remained. Marcus and his followers circled quietly, waiting for an opportunity. Leo moved calmly through the yard, helping some inmates carry supplies, greeting others politely, and observing the small dynamics of the yard. His actions were simple but meaningful, and prisoners began to notice the quiet authority he carried. By late afternoon, Marcus decided on a subtle approach. He noticed a small group of inmates moving away from the main yard, leaving a narrower space where Leo might not have room to maneuver freely. Marcus signaled to his followers and moved cautiously, planning to corner Leo without direct force at first. He wanted to challenge him psychologically as well as physically. "Leo," Marcus called softly as he approached, careful to keep his tone measured. "We need to settle this. You are new here, and I will not let anyone ignore me. Follow me, and we will see who controls this yard." Leo followed at a calm pace, aware of the trap but not threatened. He understood that Marcus was testing him, and patience would be the best response. They moved toward the quieter part of the yard, still observed by a few curious inmates who had sensed tension rising. When they reached the corner near the shed, Marcus turned to face him fully. "This is where it happens. You either submit or prove yourself." "Show me you belong here," Marcus said, fists clenched but careful. Leo stood still, relaxed but alert. "I do not need to prove anything to you. I belong here like anyone else. But I will not allow harm or intimidation to others. That is the only thing I defend against." His calm presence made Marcus uneasy. He had faced many opponents, but few had the ability to remain unshaken in the face of his aggression. Marcus lunged with a feint, trying to gauge Leo's reaction. Leo moved smoothly, sidestepping and redirecting the motion. Marcus stumbled but caught himself. He realized again that speed, strength, or aggression would not be enough. Leo's calm awareness and control were unmatched. "You are not just strong," Marcus admitted quietly, more to himself than to Leo. "You are clever and calm. That makes you dangerous." He paused, taking a deep breath. His followers watched silently, realizing that the bully's pride had met its match. Leo did not respond immediately. He simply observed, letting Marcus's realization settle. The calm control he displayed was more impactful than any punch or force. Marcus, for the first time, felt uncertainty creeping in. He had always relied on aggression to control situations, but Leo showed him a different kind of strength. The tension lingered through the evening. Other inmates whispered about the interaction, noting the quiet authority Leo carried and the shift in Marcus's confidence. Marcus was learning that earning respect did not come from fear alone, and that awareness and skill could outweigh aggression. By nightfall, the yard had quieted. Guards made their rounds, but even they had noticed the change in energy. Inmates moved differently, some with caution, some with curiosity. Leo's calm presence had influenced the yard without chaos, without loud threats, and without unnecessary conflict. Marcus retreated to his corner, reflecting on the day's events. He realized that controlling the yard would require strategy, intelligence, and patience. He could not rely solely on strength or intimidation anymore. Leo had changed the rules without saying a word. Leo, meanwhile, sat quietly on a bench, observing the prison walls, the remaining inmates, and the shifting dynamics. He understood that patience, awareness, and calm skill were more powerful than aggression. The yard had begun to respect him without a fight, and he had laid the foundation for navigating challenges to come. Tomorrow promised more tests. Marcus would try to regain pride. Others would be curious, and the subtle competition for control of the yard would continue. But Leo was ready. He had skill, awareness, and patience, which made him prepared for any challenge. The day ended quietly, but its effects lingered. Inmates whispered about Leo. Marcus reflected on his own pride, and the yard had already begun to feel a shift in energy. Leo's calm authority was a force that did not need loud actions or displays. He had already changed the dynamics, and everyone in the yard knew it. The rivalry between Marcus and Leo was far from over. It was evolving into a test of strategy, intelligence, and patience. Strength alone would no longer determine respect or influence. Leo had set the stage for a new kind of order, one that combined skill, awareness, and quiet authority. And for everyone watching, the lesson was clear. Leo was not ordinary. He was calm, skilled, observant, and precise. He had turned a bully's challenge into an opportunity to demonstrate control, and the prison yard would never be the same. The quiet storm had begun, and everyone could feel its presence. The 5th day in prison dawned with a tense energy that ran through the yard like electricity. Everyone knew that Leo had already earned quiet respect, but Marcus had spent the night planning. He could not allow himself to appear weak in front of the inmates. His pride demanded that he challenge Leo one final time, and he was determined to do it carefully. Leo walked through the yard calmly, carrying a small bag of laundry. His eyes scanned every corner, observing subtle movements and behaviors. He had learned quickly that awareness in this place was just as important as skill. He did not seek confrontation, but he also understood that challenges were inevitable. Marcus gathered his closest followers near the center of the yard. His expression was serious, his posture firm. "Today I will show him who is in charge," he said quietly. "No tricks, no hesitation. This will be clean. We corner him and we assert dominance. If he resists, we end it quickly." His followers nodded, some with excitement, others with nervous energy. Leo noticed the group from a distance. He did not appear concerned, but his eyes were sharp. He had studied Marcus's patterns over the last few days, and he understood that Marcus would act today. Leo was ready, relying on his skill, awareness, and calm presence to navigate the situation. The yard seemed quieter than usual as Marcus approached. Inmates paused their activities, sensing the tension building. Marcus blocked Leo's path deliberately, his presence larger and more commanding than before. His followers flanked him, ready to step in if needed. "Leo," Marcus called firmly, "this ends today. You have walked through this yard without understanding the rules. You need to know who is in charge. Follow me." Leo stopped, his calm eyes fixed on Marcus. "Respect is earned, not taken by force," he replied quietly. "I have no desire for conflict, but I will defend myself if necessary." His tone was measured, firm, and unshakable. Marcus's brow furrowed. Most people would react with fear or anger, but Leo's composure made him pause. Marcus lunged suddenly, this time with a controlled force, aiming to push Leo against the wall. Leo shifted smoothly, redirecting Marcus's momentum. Marcus stumbled, regaining balance, but Leo's precision and timing left him off guard. The few inmates watching gasped quietly, impressed by the control Leo displayed. "You are clever," Marcus admitted quietly, his pride wounded. "You anticipate everything. You are stronger than I expected, not just in body but in mind." He adjusted his stance, realizing that brute force alone would not work. He would need strategy, patience, and intelligence to challenge Leo. Leo remained calm, observing Marcus carefully. Every movement, every slight shift in weight gave him information. He did not attack aggressively. Instead, he waited for the right moment, understanding that control and awareness were more powerful than raw strength. Marcus lunged again, this time faster, aiming for Leo's arm. Leo sidestepped, guiding Marcus forward with a smooth motion that unbalanced him. Marcus stumbled into one of his own followers, causing a ripple of surprise among the group. The crowd of inmates watching the yard fell silent. No one had ever seen Marcus caught off guard so clearly. "You see," Leo said quietly, "strength without control can be a liability. Awareness and precision are more powerful than force alone." His words were simple, yet they carried authority. Marcus's expression shifted from anger to reflection. For a moment, Marcus froze. He realized that Leo was not just skilled physically, but also mentally. He had anticipated Marcus's patterns, reactions, and intent. Marcus had been aggressive and impulsive, while Leo was calm, patient, and precise. This was a lesson Marcus had never encountered before. Leo waited, letting Marcus regain composure. He understood that aggression could escalate the situation quickly, and he wanted to maintain control without unnecessary conflict. Marcus's followers whispered among themselves, realizing that their leader was being challenged in a way they had never seen. "You are patient," Marcus said finally, breathing heavily. "You do not act recklessly. You understand timing and observation. That is dangerous." He shook his head slightly, acknowledging what he had learned. For the first time, he understood that Leo's strength was not only in his body, but in his mind. Leo nodded quietly. "In this yard, respect is built through action, fairness, and awareness. Force can only go so far. Power is knowing when to act and how to act. That is what keeps people safe and in control." His calm tone and measured words left an impression. Marcus took a step back, lowering his fists slightly. He was exhausted, not from fatigue alone, but from the realization of Leo's skill. His followers looked at him with uncertain expressions, sensing that their leader's confidence had shifted. Marcus had always relied on intimidation, but now he realized that strength alone was not enough. The yard remained silent as Leo walked a few steps away. He did not gloat or show dominance unnecessarily. His calm presence alone had already taught Marcus and the other inmates a lesson. Power could be subtle, precise, and controlled. Aggression was not the only way to command respect. Marcus's pride still burned, but he understood the situation clearly now. He had faced someone who could anticipate, counter, and control without chaos. Marcus realized that earning respect required more than force. It required awareness, intelligence, and patience. The rest of the day passed without further confrontation. Marcus kept his distance, but he observed Leo closely. The other inmates noticed the change in his behavior. Marcus, who had once relied solely on fear and aggression, was now cautious, reflective, and learning. Leo's calm authority had influenced the yard profoundly. By evening, the prison had returned to its normal rhythm, but the air carried a different energy. Inmates whispered about Leo. Marcus reflected quietly, and the subtle power balance in the yard had shifted. Leo had earned acknowledgement, respect, and a quiet authority that did not need violence to assert itself. Leo sat on a bench, watching the yard and observing the interactions of others. He understood that prison life required intelligence, patience, and control, not just strength. He had navigated the challenges of the past few days without unnecessary conflict, proving that awareness and skill were more powerful than aggression. Marcus, meanwhile, retreated to his corner, quietly reflecting. He had faced someone unlike anyone he had encountered before. Leo had changed the rules of engagement in the yard. Marcus realized that pride and aggression alone were no longer enough. He needed strategy, observation, and patience to maintain influence in this environment. The guards made their rounds, noting the quiet tension in the yard. They had seen Leo's calm, controlled interactions and understood that he was different from other inmates. He had handled challenges with skill and awareness, influencing others without creating chaos. Even they recognized that Leo's presence brought a new order to the yard. As night fell, the yard settled into quiet. Inmates returned to their cells and the usual sounds of gates and footsteps slowed. Leo remained alert, observing every movement. The subtle energy of control, respect, and awareness lingered. The yard had changed under his presence, and everyone felt it. For Marcus, the day had been a lesson. He understood that his approach would need to change. Aggression alone could no longer guarantee respect. Leo had demonstrated that skill, patience, and calm authority could achieve more than intimidation. Marcus reflected quietly, planning how he could adapt, learn, and regain his confidence without repeating past mistakes. Leo, calm and observant, considered the days ahead. He had successfully navigated the challenges, maintained his composure, and earned acknowledgement. His skill, awareness, and calm authority had created an influence that would last. In a place governed by fear and aggression, he had shown that intelligence, patience, and precision could redefine respect. The story of Leo in the prison yard reached its turning point. He had transformed the way inmates perceived power and control. Marcus had learned a hard lesson about pride, aggression, and respect. The yard had become a place where observation, patience, and skill mattered as much as strength. By the end of the day, a quiet understanding settled over the yard. Inmates whispered about Leo. Marcus reflected on his growth, and the subtle power balance had shifted in a way no one could ignore. Leo had faced the bully, the challenges, and the tension of the yard, emerging not with chaos or anger, but with calm authority and undeniable skill. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, as life in prison was never simple. But Leo had already shown that awareness, patience, and skill could navigate any situation. His presence had changed the yard, earning respect, acknowledgement, and subtle authority without unnecessary conflict. The rivalry with Marcus was no longer about dominance through aggression. It had become a test of intelligence, observation, and control. Leo had set a new standard. The yard, the inmates, and even Marcus himself had learned that strength alone did not define power. Skill, calmness, and awareness were the true measure. As night deepened, Leo watched the yard one last time. The sun had set, the shadows stretched along the walls, and the subtle, quiet energy of respect and understanding lingered. The first days had tested him, Marcus had learned, and the yard had changed. Leo had proven that he was not just another inmate. He was calm, skilled, observant, and precise. He had earned respect, shifted the balance, and set a new tone in the prison yard.